Hello, I'm Doug Belden, your Hillsborough County tax collector. You are watching Tampa Bay Community Network.
Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government. And if I say the words tax collector, what comes to mind? All of a sudden, the Hagar Horrible cartoon comes up with the guy with the big axe, the hood over him, and the bag, tell him to fill it? Well, we've got a tax collector with us today that doesn't fit any of those particular things. He is one of the greatest guys and a terrific manager, Doug Belden. Doug, glad to have you on board.
Thank you very much.
Hillsborough County tax collector. Wow. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Basically, for the last 17 years of being collector, we are responsible for the collection of all ad valorem taxes in Hillsborough County, all motor vehicle transactions,
Let me stop you 1%. Ad valorem.
Ad valorem.
You know what that means. The politicians know what that means, but a lot of people don't.
That's, ad valorem is property taxes versus tangible taxes. It's real property.
Okay.
Like your home, like a piece of vacant property.
Okay.
We collect now about $1.8 million a year in ad valorem taxes. When I took office, it was only $940 million, just to show you the growth in Hillsborough County. We are also responsible for all the motor vehicle transactions, the issuance of driver's license, motor vehicle registrations, titles. We also issue hunting and fishing license. We do vessels. We just took on providing birth certificates, and very soon we'll be taking the application for concealed weapons permits.
Oh, really? I didn't know you carried that one too.
Yes, we just got approved from the state, meaning the Tax Collectors Association statewide. The way it works is they come in our office, we fingerprint you, and then once we collect the information vis-a-vis an application, it is then transmitted to the FDLE, who gives final approval, and then the actual concealed weapons permit or license is issued by the Department of Agriculture.
Oh, so they do everything in your office? It's one stop?
No, we just collect the data, the information.
But it's one stop for the person. If I wanted to get a concealed weapon permit.
And then you'd be issued or mailed the permit from the Department of Agriculture.
I don't have to go somewhere to get fingerprinted, another place to turn. You started doing the entire thing. What, out of curiosity, and I know you collect taxes on 1,000 things, and I promise you I wouldn't hit you with specifics, but you know what it costs to get one of those applications processed by any chance?
I had one at one time, and I recall the last time was around $160.
Okay, and that's
that was
years,
everything where they actually issued you the
that includes the fingerprinting?
That included everything.
Okay.
And also the gun safety you're required to have and all that sort of thing.
If I had my house and I had an addition built on it, does your office come out and inspect it?
No, that's the role of the property appraiser.
I wanted to be sure that we got those two separated.
And I want to make it very clear, we are totally a different office. And people do get mixed up. I just simply collect the money. They assess the value. And what happens is, statutorily, every year they provide me a certified tax roll, which I cannot modify or change, whether it be the address, and that's exactly where I mail the tax bills to.
Okay, they set the tax, you collect it.
That's correct.
All right, so the big difference, property appraiser, they set the tax. All he's doing is collect it. Don't blame him.
You're right, that's correct. And some people get mixed up. And then our job is to collect and redistribute it to the various agencies, the school board for the bonds, and that, to the various special districts, et cetera.
I'm amazed. I've watched you over a long period of time now at the efficiency with which you run that office. And I don't say that a lot about political people or politicians, but you are less a politician and much more a manager than I think I've seen a lot of elected officials.
Well, I come from the private sector, specifically in real estate development, and I was an entrepreneur when I was 28 years old. So You know, when you're going to borrow money from a bank and you don't have 2 nickels to rub in the savings account, they have to have trust in you. And you better be sure that you've got a good budget, because you can't go back and borrow more money. So when I needed a fax machine, I didn't purchase a $1,500 fax machine. I may have gotten a used one that did the job. I brought that same philosophy to the tax collector's office as far as fiscal responsibility. As a leader, I've learned that if it ain't broke, improve it. That's our management philosophy there. I believe in how a leader should act to the employees. You need to involve them in the decision-making process and share in the successes. They could care less about your position, they care about your disposition. And the bottom line is, efficiency is the foundation for survival. Effectiveness is the foundation for success. A lot of people say, well, we're doing great. We think we have a great operation. You've got to be able to prove that with measurable results. So one of the things about the Governor Sterling Award, it's not the award that we were interested in receiving, it's the business model.
Now explain the award, because there are a group of people who will not know about the Sterling Award.
The Sterling Award is very similar to the National Malcolm Baldrige Award, which is, before I retire, the last award that I want to become a recipient of. You're competing against all kind of national companies, and if you become a recipient, it's awarded to you by the President of the United States and the Department of Commerce.
Really?
Which is huge.
I didn't know that part.
Yes. The Sterling Award is a state award for Florida, and it's very, very time consuming. You put an application, which is 50 pages. You let the Sterling Council know how you run your office, and they come with about 9 examiners to validate and confirm what you're saying is correct. And it's scored from 1 to 1,000 points. Before you become a recipient, you probably have to be somewhere between 650 and 750 to be considered a recipient. The most points, 300 of the 1,000, are in a category called results, which means you have to measure success over a period of time. Therefore, you have to have targets. You have to have a lot of measurements and show you how you made process improvement. And in our organization, we have 75 to 100 different measurements. Cycle time, wait time. We partner with the University of South Florida, the chairman of the Department of Industrial Engineering, and got credits to students. There's a great relationship between academia and local government. And what they found are 3 things to improve all this: adjusted lunch hours, the flow of traffic, segregating driver's license, which is very time consuming, to motor vehicle registrations, which can take us less than 2 minutes to do. The queuing station. So we've implemented a lot of that, because we're always trying to do things faster, better, and cheaper. And we also believe in sharing best practices.
Let me stop you just for a second. Faster, better, and cheaper sometimes implies a heavier load on the employee. And yet I go out to your facility there in Sun City Center, and I've never such a group of helpful, happy people.
It's all about, we promote life balance. Very, very important. The other thing is, I like to spend time going to visit my employees. I go out and provide them lunch, employees appreciation lunch. I go and purchase myself hamburgers, hot dogs, and cold drinks, and literally take my leadership team of directors, one with me, to each one of my 7 branches, and stay there for the 3 lunch hours, 11, 12, and 1. I'm able to communicate with them.
So they have a staggered lunch?
Yes, and I stay there for all 3, and they usually get together and bring potato salad, and they really enjoy it. It's another way of making your employees happy other than compensation. And when your employees don't get a raise for 6 years, you've got to find a way to keep the morale at a high level. We've always done that, and the way you prove that is through an employee engagement survey. The last time we did one, we did every 2 years, the response rate was 96%, and the success rate of that they enjoyed working for our organization was 94%. And this was done independently by a company, and they have said they've never seen that high results, particularly in government operations.
Yeah, I can believe that. That is the exception rather than the rule.
Correct.
So how many of these offices do you have?
We've got 7, and it's very important to mention this. We were mandated to take over all the driver's license functions from the state in 2015 in June. And of course, to us, we're going to be bringing on additional 50,000 transactions per year as a result of all this. Well, to be proactive and avoid a crisis, which a leader does not wait till something happens, we went out to Brandon, where we were, and we built a new 20,000 square foot facility. But more importantly, we did not have to buy the property. It's county owned for a number of years, and I executed a ground lease for 50 years at $1 per year. We saved, if I had to purchase that property, taxpayers about $1.6 million in land acquisition. In addition to that, down the road where we left, we collapsed a commercial lease, and we were paying up to $400,000 a year with annual escalators. We currently just broke ground on a piece of property owned by the state, or they call it the trustees of the state, which are the cabinet members. They just assigned us that lease, which has a remaining lease life of 60 years for $1 a year. There again, we're closing down our West County branch office. We're saving roughly $285,000 a year in lease payments, and again, these leases go up every single year.
Sure.
And the fact that we are now paying a ground lease to them. If we were to purchase the same size property, it'd be another $1.4 million, $1.5 million we save the taxpayers. And more importantly, it's 25,000 square feet, and of that, we are subleasing for the 60 years for $1 a year, 5,000 square feet to the state. And as you know, we're an agent for the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicle. This is a classic example of government working together, which I've been a proponent for many, many years.
So important. So many times it seemed to work at counterpoint to each other.
Yes, I mean, for example, we have cell towers. We've worked together with a clerk of the circuit court. We have a phenomenal relationship with the sheriff's department. We'd allow them to put different radio frequencies for what they needed to do versus our communication between our branches.
You had to have your own cell towers?
Yes, but right now, because of new technology, we now have fiber optic from both Bright House and Verizon for redundancy. Because the cell towers require a lot of maintenance, you're subject to lightning strikes because they're 180 feet tall. So it's basically older technology, but what we're doing is people like the sheriff's department, we will give it to them, and they may be used high up to overlook, for example, Ybor City with cameras.
Oh,
Panoramic view of all of 7th Avenue, 8th Avenue, and other areas in Hillsborough County.
great. Working with these other officials makes it a lot better.
And you know what I really like is that all these other officials, and I believe public servants in general, in Hillsborough County put people before politics, which is extremely important.
I think you were mentioning that when we were off the air, that was really something you were very, very interested in promoting more in government, was people before politics.
Correct. And what I mean,
Do you think that's possible in today's atmosphere?
yes, I do. And it takes leadership from the very top to the very bottom. And what people need to understand is in order to be a successful community, you've got to be very diverse, and you've got to be able to include every ethnicity in the entire Hillsborough County, regardless. And you do that from the mayor, you do it from the county commission, you do it from the constitutionals. I have all my life had that ability of pulling people together, which I enjoy doing, or debating with civility to come out what's best for the community.
There's
not
the hard
for self-serving
thing, too.
agenda. But I learned that from my family for many, many years. My grandfather, Dr. Flynn, took care of the poor. He was an oral surgeon. His brother took care of, he was an OBGYN. Women that were having children, it'd be $100 if they could pay for it. So I've learned at a very young age, and was in politics since I was 16 years old, behind the scenes, that you can have a successful community by pulling people together and coming to a common agreement, and not what's for your interest, but what's in the best interest of Hillsborough County. That can work. It's worked in other communities in this nation.
I'm interested because you bring up a very important point there. It's really hard to get elected in this country because first you've got to get by a primary, and in that primary, the hard right wing or the hard left wing sways most of the election. We had, 22% of the eligible voters vote in the last Tampa election. That means that 12% of the people swung the election. How does a moderate or somebody that's willing to work on both sides get elected today, Doug?
There's a couple things. You'll find that the independents can win an election.
Can't get them to vote.
Well, what's so pathetic is, in my opinion, it's the American thing is to vote. And those who don't vote shouldn't be complaining about government. The other thing, nationally or down here, it is now very expensive to run for office.
Oh,
Direct
yes.
mail for local officials, advertising on television is outrageous. It's not affordable. What I have done all my life, again, because
Flyers.
of diversity, I have supporters that are Democrats, Afro-Americans, Hispanics, Republicans, because after all, I serve all of them and treat them all equally. And I've never had opposition since '98. One time I had a disgruntled employee, but I won the election by 70% of the vote. But again, the key is, and again, I'm very fortunate because I was able to unite with these various groups. My grandfather introduced me big time to Hispanics back in the late 60s when Antonori and Gibbons ran. I was at that time, I think, 12 years old. And I have watched how politics can work. The problem today is the negativity, and I don't believe that's necessary.
Exactly.
You know, people,
Exactly.
if all you can do is run down your opponent, which can affect family members, rather than telling the voters, what are you going to do for them?
I think that's, I'm sure that I'd run into a constitutional problem with that, but I would like to see there be some kind of restriction and the laws against libel relaxed, made stronger actually, so that if I said something, I had to prove it.
That's correct. And they put spin on things instead of focusing on, if I'm elected, and it doesn't matter what office, the taxpayers, the residents, the voters, they want to know, what are you going to do? What is your position on a variety of different issues that resonate with every single person in the community?
What are your plans for the future? You've done a lot in the past. You've put a lot of programs into the offices and making them work. What does Doug Belden see for the future of the tax collector's office?
At this point in my life, I'll probably run for one more term.
Okay.
I believe that's long enough to be in public life. My predecessor, a dear man, a dear friend of mine, Melvin Smith, lived 1 year after he retired. And I want to be able to spend time. I have a young son I've raised since he's 4 years old. He's now 23. And I want to do a little bit of traveling if I'm physically capable of doing some traveling. I may want to serve on some corporate boards. I may want to get into consulting with government. I haven't pinpointed all that down, but what I have pinpointed is when I retire, I'll be 66 years of age.
What do you see what would you like to see be done before you leave this office?
Well, I do have a succession plan, and I'll name that person when it's appropriate. I want to leave the office, and not only the office, but dedicate employees over the year to make sure they still have the resources. And I want the legacy to be is that I always supported them, I gave them the resources, and they supported me. And they know my philosophy very, very well. Now, I can't determine who the next tax collector is going to be. I don't know what their philosophy is going to be, but hopefully, based on, I should say, when I ran in '98, I promised the voters if they gave me a chance, I would modernize the office, I would have an efficient office, an ethical office. I believe that not me, but we have achieved those promises I made the voters who did give me a chance in 1998.
I know for one thing for sure, your executive assistant, Brendan Shermonte, is one of the sharpest young men I've run across. And talk about customer consciousness. This man goes out of his way to help everybody who gets on that phone before they have to get to you.
He is absolutely phenomenal. I could not possibly have a better interview or no interview. What I like doing is I like hiring within. I was very fortunate. He came from the very bottom to learn. His personality, he's very professional, but he knows about motor vehicle and taxes. He is so friendly and professional. I hear it all the time via telephone, in public, by email.
Of course, his family has a long history.
That's correct. His dad, Ray Shermonte, who just retired as a planning commissioner, is one of the finest men I've ever met and highly respected by many, many, many folks. And that's where a good example of genetics go, is obviously they have moved to his son.
One's taught the other, yes.
There you go. And again, I'm very, very fortunate. He's a people person, but he's very, very down to the law. He's highly ethical. And again, he would be very, very difficult to replace.
Tell me, what can people do for you? What can the average citizen do for you?
Well,
How can we help you, I guess? You run a pretty good operation, but what can we do to help you?
Well, I'm always looking for ways to improve the office. I'm not a person who wants accolades and all that sort of thing. I just want to make sure that people recognize that the tax collector's office is one of the most efficient organizations in the state of Florida. And that kind of respect I get, the telephone calls, the letters, that's all I'm looking for. I'm not a person. In fact, I want to give credit not to myself but to my employees. They're your asset. I mean, without them, I mean, they work hard. They represent me on the front line. They're ethical. We do extensive training. I try to run it basically like a well-oiled private sector business.
I'll tell you another story on your office. I have a friend who was bringing his boat back down, and from Ontario or from Lake Erie, could not go through the Welland Canal or the canal there, Erie Canal, because it had been shut down as a result of some of the hurricanes. So he had to go up and around and through the St. Lawrence and come down, and he found himself in Canada and realized his boat license was out of whack.
Correct.
And so it's a Florida boat. And so he called me and he said, what do I do? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, let me call over there. I got the name of the person to talk to. And they walked him through the boat license, took the credit card information, sent the license up to him to meet him at customs coming back down the canal, and just everything, 1, 2, 3. He was so pleased and so happy, he could have still been sitting up there in the ice.
That's wonderful to hear. And again, our core value and core competency is customer service. That's what we're all about, customer service. And I'm very proud that, again, through the Sterling process, you got to know as an employee what your job is, what your responsibilities are, what is your job about, what is the vision of what you think. I believe we have instilled over the years that into our employees. Our turnover is extremely low. And again, I do everything I possibly can for the employees to show them appreciation. And it's them. And we collect tens of thousands of comment cards, another way to measure something. Right now, as we speak, even with longer...
Those are important, right? They just don't go in file 13.
No, they don't. We record that information. If a certain percentage don't, we want to find out why they weren't happy. But I'm proud to say our percentage of good and excellent, we have poor, we have fair, we have good, and we have excellent. Of good and excellent, we're at 97%. I tie that into a performance holiday. If the employees can maintain that 97% every 6 months, they earn a holiday.
Really?
Based on performance.
The whole office or the individual?
Well, those individuals, as long as they're not on probation or something like that, the entire office.
So it's important for them.
Right.
I wondered why she was so insistent I fill out the comment card.
Yeah, that's very important because
I thought, well, that's kind of nice, and I'm really happy. I said, I'm really happy. I don't have any comments. Yeah. She said, well, say that then.
And we collect that data. It's very important as part of our measurements. We're always looking ways to, improvement process. We do SWOT analysis. We do everything possible, again, to make it, even better than it is now, the organization. And again, I think it's very important. We also do a lot. I share best practices with many other tax collectors because of what we've done and what I've said. Right now, 5 other tax collectors have won the Sterling Award and 3 more the process. And county government, I'm now working with the county attorney's office. Dr. Garrity, the head of the EPA, he is applying for the Sterling Award, and Hillsborough County needs to support that business model.
So you've become a teacher of the people here in Hillsborough County.
Well, I'm trying to promote the fact that, again, this would be an excellent government business model. I have a huge respect for Mr. Mike Merrill, our new county administrator.
He is, and he's coming on the show. He's promised me that he'll come on.
Yes, he's a wonderful...
He's had some situations that just hadn't fit the right time. But Mike Merrill will be on, and I'm excited to have him come on.
He is a gentleman We have worked on many projects together, many, many projects. He has supported the tax collector's efforts. He is the one that obviously approved the lease to me on Falkenberg. It's county-owned property. His entire staff, I've known a lot of them for many years, whether it be in real estate, I don't care if it's janitorial, whatever. I've written them many letters. I always do that. If someone helps me or our organization out, their boss will be getting a letter from me every single time for their files, thanking them. That's critical.
I write letters of thank you all the time.
Yep.
And people don't realize how important that is. I'm going to have Joe Lopano on too.
Right, good.
I'm interested. That was the reason why we moved here, was that airport.
Interesting.
I've traveled all over the world as a professional speaker, and I hate airports. I just detest them. But this is the most civilized airport in the country.
By far.
So we've got a lot of good things going on here.
We sure do.
In Hillsborough County.
A lot of good things we can do. But as always, my goal is to fulfill the promises I made the people that gave me a chance to run or to vote, and that was the voters of Hillsborough County in 1998.
Well, I think the results prove the statement that you've done that.
I believe so, that we have done that, and very important as a leader, you never refer to I or me, it's we. Without my employees, we wouldn't achieve that.
You know what? But it also says in the Bible, where there is no leadership, the people will perish.
No, true.
So,
True.
you know, it's all right to say, well, it's our team that did it, but you notice in the Super Bowl, the coach didn't say the team was stupid, it was my call. You know, I had them throw the ball, didn't.
You know, my job is to coach and lead, and they have obviously followed the direction that I wanted to pursue in government. And what's not good, I'm also very ethical. To me, when I see public servants, you know, it's so easy to fill out a financial disclosure form. It's so easy to be transparent. And I'll tell you another thing, something may be legal, but perception is everything.
Oh,
perception
are you
is
right?
everything.
Oh.
And what you can do is that we have a assistant county, or actually general counsel, Mary Helen Ferris, who has 22 years experience in ethics law. So if I had a question, which very rarely I do, what you do is simply ask for a written opinion before you do something or say something
The
or get
sheriff
engaged in
just
something.
hired someone to come in and talk to them, or to be part of their staff for that very
Right.
thing.
And the other thing is, our office, we have mandatory training every year for every employee for sexual harassment, diversity, and ethics, required.
All of them important subjects if you're going to have a well-oiled office that works.
Right. And it is mandatory, and we have 100% every year.
Because if you don't care about it, they're not going
That's
to.
correct. And just so, you know, you do the right thing. I've always been taught that from my grandfather and dad, do whatever's right.
And you do. Doug Belden, I'm so happy you
Pleasure.
took the time to come down. If Doug moved around a little bit, it's because he hurt his hip and it's hurting. But he was good enough to come even on a walker to get here today. That's how important he thinks it is. I really appreciate your being here. And by the time this shows, you will be off your walker and you're feeling great.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Bill Hodges. This is Spotlight on Government. You're unique, you're special, and you're great. Tell yourself so often because you are, you know. And Doug Belden, you're unique and special, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Glad to
very
be here.
much. We'll see you on the next show.